Hello everyone, welcome to another race analysis video with Mo Allen. Today I'm racing the Zwift Epic race on Makuri 40. This is an all category race. My current race score, as you saw there, is 491. The race score technically doesn't matter here. It would be nice to have known what the race score of other riders around was, but this is an all category race, so that information is not known unless you do some sort of recon or real-time view into the riders around you, which I know can be done possibly with sauce. I haven't looked exactly in the sauce, but my understanding from seeing someone else talk about the riders around them during a race that I think it gave you that information. But anyway, here we go. This is 40.3 kilometers total, 313 meters of elevation. This starts out climbing immediately, then there's some flat, then there's another climb, and then the finish ends in a little bump up. Actually, the finish ends in this section right here where we start. So here we go. It's about 80 riders to start. My strategy is to stay with the front group for as long as I can until and unless they're going just way too hard for the distance I have left or the number of people I'm with or any number of factors how I'm feeling. So I knew that this started with the climb at the beginning. I honestly didn't know how long the climb was. My recon for this was to read the Zwift Insider description. It would have helped, I think, if I had watched the ride-along video. I think I'll start doing that when my recon involves just reading the route description. Unless I know the route well, then I'll probably include watching the ride-along video that's included on most, if not all, of the Zwift Insider descriptions. So here you can see minute and a half in already at 420 watt average, group getting strung out a little bit. At this point, seeing how much is left, I'm of two minds. I'm like, all right, this is tough so far. It's going to take a lot to stay with this group up this, basically the second half of this. Got probably another minute and a half or so to climb, if not a couple of minutes. And I'm not sure I'm going to stay with this group at this point. I'm, again, 2 minutes in now, 425 watt average. And so another thing to talk about here is that, and here you can see the group getting really strung out and me not making a huge effort to stay with that front group. So now I'm trying to figure out, okay, we're coming to the top of this. I don't think I'm going to get back to the front, although it's potentially possible here. You can see here is a big decision. And I do put in a little dig here, but there I probably, if I was going to do anything, I needed to make a move to stay with that group there. So there's 29 riders up the road. I'm in 30th place. So here there's a definite gap that formed, and I'm not feeling strong enough to close that gap on my own. So now I'm just trying to figure out what riders that come by me or with me I could stay with and maybe try to bridge the gap with them. So you can see two riders go by me there and I'm not able to stay with them, even putting out 440 watts at points. So there that group goes, and so here I'm backing off a little bit and just waiting for the group of riders behind and seeing if I can stay with them. So here I go, a couple riders come and I try to wind up to try to stay with them. So I'm in my garage as always. This ride I did at 5 a.m. I woke up at 4 a.m. and I went to bed at midnight. So I'm doing this on 4 hours sleep. I did not feel the best. I had a 15-minute workout. Actually, when I got up, my laptop was dead, so I had to charge it. So I wasn't even sure I was going to race. So I'm sure that played a little bit of a part mentally. Here, I probably shouldn't be in the front of this rider. I'm not catching that rider in front. So I probably should be at least drafting this rider. In fact, it's S. Castillo. I meant to check. That's the rider in front there. I think I've raced with them before and actually talked about them in a previous video. I need to check. But anyway, so I'm tired on this race. You can see I have my sweater on there, still at 4.5, almost 5 minutes in, because it's freezing outside. It just snowed the other day, and it may be, I don't know how cold the garage gets compared to outside, but it may be 30 degrees in that garage. I'm not sure. It was really cold. I didn't turn my fan on at all. So anyway, I just wanted to get it done on a Sunday morning. I had a bunch of stuff to do, so this is the decision I made. I'm glad I got up, glad I got into it. So here we go. We get a group forming. A good little group here. And now I'm just doing damage control. I am not feeling like 5 minutes in here, and I am hurting in a bunch of ways. My legs are feeling it. My breathing, I couldn't really get my breathing under control. Actually, looking at this now, it's interesting. At some point in this race, my heart rate monitor goes on the fritz and it goes down like 50 beats a minute. So it's interesting. I'm just noticing now that it's correct now, or likely correct at 160 beats. But it'll be interesting to see if I can notice when that goes on the fritz. I do end up fixing it again, but anyway, yeah, this is tough from this point all the way through the end of the ride. Like, it was immediately tough. That effort at the beginning, my breathing, bringing in the cold air, I wasn't feeling that strong. So I'm just trying to stay with this group at this point and recover as much as I can until the next climb. At this point, I didn't actually remember what the next climb was. I just remembered the route profile, which you can see on the top right there in the silhouetted black section. The green section is what we'd already done, and the red balloon is where we currently are. That little climb there after the descent and before the ascent, that little climb in the middle with the green balloon, that one I didn't actually know what that climb was, but at this point I'm just trying to mentally prepare for any bumps that come. I wasn't aware really of, again, not being familiar with this route and not having seen the ride along video. I wasn't actually sure what little bumps were coming that weren't considered, segments or categorized climbs, but still would take effort to stay with the group. So just trying to be conservative here, stay in the back when I can. If any one rider goes off of this group, I'm not chasing, but I'll just stay with the group. Probably if 2 riders go, the same thing, but if 3 riders went, I probably would try to cover it. So that's my strategy at this point. So it's interesting here to see that my heart rate didn't take one large dip, my heart rate monitor. Or maybe it did. It stopped now. It slowly declined down to this 100 beats. Now it's under 100. It's like slowly going down. I don't think I've seen that before. Usually when the heart rate monitor goes on the fritz, at least from what I remember, it just like immediately drops off. Or maybe that's just what I'm assuming it does. And I hadn't noticed that it slowly dips down like this. This is an interesting behavior. Like it's stuck at 97 now for the last several seconds. Now it goes down to 96, 95. Now it's sort of rapidly declining. Not sure what that is. I actually do, so my heart rate monitor, as you'll see listed in the type of gear that I use in the description of this video, is a Polar H10 heart rate monitor. And I actually have a spare for this eventuality. My heart rate monitors do not last long at all. I've had Garmin HRMs, I've had Wahoo KICKRs. This Polar, I think, is my first Polar, which has been more consistent than any of the others. So I'm happy with it so far, but now it's on the fritz. So here we are in the group, one little attack back there, and now we get another wind up. And so you can see a couple riders go off the front and the group string out. So I'm staying with the rider in fourth here, trying to see if they cover this move, and it seems like they do. There's another rider up ahead. So this one I'm trying to cover, or actually two riders up ahead. So this one I don't want to get dropped from this little group here, so trying to do what I can to stay here, and I do cover the move, thankfully. Settle back into the group and get ready for either some recovery or the next attack. I'm always keeping an eye. One of the main things that I use is the watts per kilogram of the riders in the rider list. The power-ups and the name badges that appear above the rider avatars, they often obscure the front of the group. So I'm using the time to the riders in front plus the watts per kilogram to kind of keep an eye on what the group is doing and see if I need to get up front and cover any moves. A word about power-ups. My coach, Dan, whose information is at the bottom of this description, his coaching program, he let me know that at every opportunity for a power-up, you get a feather. So that was useful to know. I just didn't know how many opportunities there were, but I knew that I would get a feather at every one, and also that there was a feather just a short distance before the final climb. So that was useful to know as well. So as we approach the underground sort of cavern cave entrance here, I didn't notice the route profile at this point. I remember when I approached this, I'm thinking, okay, is this where that climb is going to come? Which obviously it isn't, looking at the route profile, but at the time I didn't know, because I know that there's a sort of sustained incline through here that can be an effort. But at this point, 30 minutes in, 275 watts, things have settled down. Staying with the group pretty well. A couple little, I don't know if I call them attacks, but moves to cover. That caused a bit more power output, but at this point, staying in the back, and I noticed this downhill first little option here to try to recover a little bit. So see me here get off the power completely and try to use my rider weight to drift down here, which I'm able to do for a bit. So that was great. I get to do it again at some point. So here I'm happy to be recovering, but still feeling pretty spent. Again, breathing I think is normalized a little bit, but it was still a little hard to get good clean breaths. I was doing some deep breathing throughout this, but that cold air was something else. I was coughing a little bit too, so. So here's, we're about halfway up this little orange section here, 3 to 4%. You'll see that I hit the power up again. If I had known that there was another climb coming and not having known when the next power up was available, I would have saved that power up. So this was a mistake for sure by me. I could have stayed with this group without that power up. And you know, the climb is over and we still, again, at this point I was not looking at that mini map at all. So we still have the actual climb to come. I thought maybe that could have been, I should have known that that wasn't the actual climb. Actually, I don't know if I thought that that was the climb. I just might have been a little bit of a moment of weakness. I didn't know, maybe I thought that I would be able to get another power up before the climb came. I didn't know exactly how far away the climb was, so I figured I'd just pop it there. Here we have one rider going off the front, so the group is going to string out again, so the watts wind up to cover the moves. Here we go with the actual next climb of note. After that little bump back there of about 5%, this is the more sustained climb. So here I'm just going to try to stay towards the front. Again, with this group, I'm feeling okay with how I'm matched with these other riders. Again, at the time, I didn't know what the level of the riders in this group were. But considering we've been riding together for a better part of 30 minutes, over 30 minutes, I figured I was well matched and could at least try to cover their moves. It didn't seem like they were just completely going to blow me out of the water on any of these climbs. These climbs aren't like long, sustained climbs, so I was ready to put in what I needed to as I am here. So you can see me getting behind these two riders here, feeling okay at this point, climbing at relatively high cadence up near 90 RPM, which felt okay. After this climb, you'll notice, and I'll mention it, that when it happens, that I get into a easier gear and start to try to stay with the group over 100 RPM, just to not have to rely so much on the musculature in the legs and try to use the cardio more. Here we are up this first little test with the top 5 riders in the group. I turned the graph off there just for, again, a couple of reasons. I say again because I mentioned it in previous videos. That one, it obscures the distance to the riders behind. And when I'm in a group like this and there's riders behind me, I like to see when they're, how far back they are in case they're gonna come up quickly. So I'll use that plus their distance in the rider list and their watts in the rider list to kind of know what they're doing. And also, seeing the effort put out can sometimes be a negative, right? Seeing that I'm in the red for a long time, or seeing that I was in the red and I've dropped back into the yellow, if that isn't, if that was a sign of a little bit of weakness, then I tend to turn that off at certain points during climbs. So we've got through that little test there, and I'm looking forward to, here I am back to the back of the group, just trying to get the draft, and looking forward to recovery on the downhill at this point. And now, so there's 12K to go here, and I know that the next test, I believe with this group, I don't think anyone's gonna break away like, very, very early. Again, any one rider that breaks away, I would let it happen at this point, I think. But any two riders, which you can see here, there are two riders going up front, although we're going on a decline here, right? So I will try to, actually there's three riders up there. I will try to just cover those moves. And so here I'm off the pedals using my rider weight just to coast down, which felt good physically and mentally, just getting that, knowing that a little more the downhill was coming, and just getting ready for recovering for the final sprint. Like I said, I know that that sprint is an uphill sprint, the one where we started. So it's kind of a big test. I'm assuming people are hurting just like I am. But I'm preparing for what I might be able to give. I know also that riders will often break away quite a distance before the sprint, because there's like a little bump before the sprint and a banner, and then a little bit of flat, and then another bump towards the final sprint. So I'm just going all over all of that in my mind now. I'm preparing for recovery as much as I can, drafting as much as I can, and then the final sprint. So here I switch into that easier gear and wind up to over 100 RPM just to spin the legs out and try to get some recovery in. Again, I'm assuming we have mostly flat. Again, I didn't notice the route profile at this point. But so just gonna try to stay with the group at high RPM here, easier gear. Try to flush the legs out and recover as much as I can. So again, there was another little test, which I hadn't known was coming, but got through it pretty well. Had to put out some power. I turned off the graph again for those same reasons I mentioned. Was able to stay with the group. So now with just 4.5 kilometers to go, I'm looking forward to getting some recovery, but also just keeping an eye on the group and getting ready for that final sprint. You see me here just covering that very small gap, getting to the front. Here at this point, I'm gonna try to cover single rider moves likely, unless they're really long, like hard and sustained. So I would probably try to get towards the front and encourage the group to chase down a single rider. I don't know that I would necessarily chase them down myself. So here you can see a little gap open, and so that rider up front, which I believe is Castillo, who I mentioned before, is off the front. So I'm wondering if anyone's going to cover this move. So you'll probably see me go towards the front here. So it looks like the group is reacting just a little bit. Also, I mean, Castillo's putting out sort of a sustained effort to get away here. Good little move by them if they're strong. So I do just stay with the group at this point. I don't shut down that move by them. And we do actually, spoiler alert, actually catch them up, which I didn't think was going to happen at this point, because they do put out some sustained watts for a period of time to try to get away. So I just figured they were going to get away, and this was now a race for the front of this group behind, which would be around, I don't know, 33rd place or something like that. All right, so here with 1K to go, Castillo's 8 seconds up the road, and we have a move from the rider Gans in there. So I decided to cover this move, not let two people get off the front. I know it's just less than a K to go. I'm feeling it for sure, but I was able to get up to Gans in here, wondering who else was gonna come with, and didn't realize, but we're bringing, I guess, Castillo didn't sustain that much. So I go past Gans in here, and now I've got my eyes on Castillo. I didn't realize that. I was surprised to see that they were closer than I thought, just 2 seconds up the road now. Got another ride in our group, so We've got 4 people here vying for the final sprint. So here I'm just trying to stay behind. I don't have a power up, but I'm going to get one here. Like I mentioned, useful information from my coach. So this little gap here, I was feeling it. I wasn't sure that I would be able to close down the group in front. I popped the power up here because I realized that they're not like winding up yet. And so I'm just trying to put out some sustained power, and I do get back up to them. And when I see that I actually get a chance to go past them, there's only less than 200 meters to go here. I just put on the power and see what kind of effort I can put out to the front of the line. Got a good little slingshot there and gap, and was able to get at the head of this group in 30th place. So that was definitely a tough effort. So you can see here, 2.9 watts a kilogram, hour and 39 minutes. That 2.9 I think is interesting. 275 watts. I think it speaks to how well I drafted. You can see the rider ahead of me was 4 watts. The rider behind me was 3.9 watts. Here you can see my Zwift Racing Score went up 3 points from 491 to 494, which was interesting. I mentioned before that I had a big reduction in my racing score with the release of the update of Zwift Racing Score, the V3 that they put out a couple of weeks ago. I went from 550 to 475 my racing score. So I went from B to C, and I've been slowly with the races creeping back up a few points here and there. I think B, I actually don't remember where B starts. Is it 520? I think B starts at 520. So I'm slowly inching up to the bottom of the B cat, which will be interesting. But this was a good effort. Happy to have gotten it done. Again, definitely, my Dan mentioned it, my coach mentioned it, my performance definitely suffered from having little sleep. So we'll see the stats here in a second in terms of my effort across the ride. So there you can see at this point my racing score was 493 right after the ride, right? But if you had seen the screenshot earlier, it was 494, which was taken after that. So I mentioned it before, I'm not exactly sure how often or when the racing score updates. Obviously, it seems to update in stages. So anyway, good ride. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about the video. If you're doing these series, let me know how it's going for you. Any questions you have, anything you think I can do that would make these videos better, I'm all ears. Subscribe if you're so inclined. I appreciate you all watching. Hope you stay healthy, stay fit, and I will talk to you in the next video.